Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Prime Use series of interviews with top business and technology experts. I'm very delighted and excited to welcome a very special guest. It's Helen's son. She is a technology leader and artificial intelligence leader at Meta, formerly Facebook. Prior to that, Helen was CTO at Task Perform Group, and earlier she was CTO and managing director at JP Morgan Chase's commercial banking division. Helen, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. It's a great pleasure and honor to welcome you to the show.
Thank you for having me, Dana. I'm so excited to be chatting with you.
Helen, you probably hear this quite often that you were the female technology leader, and that's something that sets you apart. And also, you become a role model for others who's tried to build their career in technology. So maybe you could give us understanding of your steps in your career that have led you to your current position at Meta.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I'll try to be succinct, but there are a lot of things I'd like to share with you and the audience about my career, and hopefully, that's something that you can take and inspire some more women to step into this type of roles. So when I started, I came from Shanghai, China, by the way. I was born and grew up there. By the time I was about to pick a major in college, my mother, who was head of HR at one of the most prestigious engineering firms in Shanghai, told me not to get into engineering. Even though my background, I was very strong with math, physics, all the, STEM subject areas. And she believed that, it's a good career for a girl or female to be in education, to be a teacher versus engineering discipline. And that's why I decided to become a professor. I went to Shanghai Normal University and pursued a career in education. And then a couple of years after teaching, which was a very rewarding experience, and I decided to come to United States to pursue master's and doctoral degrees. And there I decided to kind of, get my feet into technology and started to take some classes, minors in information systems and computer science, and really fell in love with programming and found that I was a very strong problem solver. And decided to, step into, choose a career in technology, and started with web development, and then very quickly got very gravitated towards data processing and databases, and became to start to pursue career in decision support, data warehousing, business intelligence, analytics, and that lead to big data, and that lead to AI. And here I am at Meta within the AI infra organization. You're building world-class tools and platforms to support thousands of AI scientists and ML engineers at Meta to do their job with more efficiency.
I got it. That's a fascinating story, specifically when you take into account your, mom that probably wanted for you something, like more peaceful career where you could, being a girl or being a woman, could succeed and feel comfortable in. So how is it how does your mom feel right now when you actually reach the height, right? That you right now you are very successful in technology. So what does your mom say about that?
Well, my mom was obviously happy and supported the career I chose, and she was proud, and I hope she she felt that way. And I think it was really her thoughts in terms of the best interest she had in me to provide that advice. But at the same time, I think just looking back, just do what you're passionate about, even if you're told no to, even by people who are closest to you and who have the best interest in their mind for you.
Yeah, that is totally, yeah. But at the same time, I would be curious, if you don't mind, going a little bit deeper into that. So you haven't started working in technology until you left China, right? So when you left, so actually that was the moment that you decided to pursue the career in technology, and you figure out that you can be really good at it, right? And top leader.
Yes, exactly. So the pivot wasn't that straightforward either. So when I picked my major here in the States, I came to University of Toledo. I didn't even think that you could do a complete pivot and pick whatever major you wanted because I thought my background was in education. So by default, I went into College of Education. I pursued a Master of Education, and I decided to choose educational technology, sort of like a small step towards technology, about distance learning, about design of instructions, and those type of areas. But when I was at my doctoral program, it was required that we pick a minor. Major still in education technology. So I decided to pick information systems as a minor. And the first class I registered was called Information Storage and Retrieval. And it was about database and from Access to Oracle database. And I registered it very quickly. And then all of a sudden got a call from a professor who was, the professor teaching that class. And he said, Soon, he couldn't say my real first name that starts with an X and a bunch of Q's and G's in it. So he just called me by my last name. He said, Soon, I noticed that you registered for my class and you're an education major. And I was like, uh-oh, that doesn't sound too good. And then he said, well, did you take this prerequisite? I said, no, sir, I didn't take this prerequisite. And then he paused. And he said, did you have any programming background? I said, no, I didn't have any programming background. At that point, my heart sunk. I thought he was going to ask me to drop that class because that class was extremely popular. And within 2 hours, all the seats were full. But instead, he just said, you need to work very hard. This is a hard class. And I told him, absolutely. And that professor, his name is Dr. Ahmed. And he became my mentor to continue to encourage me to pursue this career. And towards the end of the class, he told me, soon you were the second highest grade in the whole class. Even though the first class I attended, we just wrote notes furiously because I didn't understand anything he was talking about, factorial this and sub that. But towards the end, just saw the look on his face. He was like ear to ear. It was so excited for me to be able to do well in that class. That just meant so much. Having someone believed in you, even if you started kind of in a weaker position, that just means so much. So that becomes something that I realized as a passion of me to tell this story, to let people know that if I could make it, anyone can.
Yeah, but that's incredible. That also that point that you made, that someone believed in you, right? That they didn't tell you to drop off because you didn't have the background or maybe the knowledge that was required. That is so powerful.
I think he set the expectation early on. This is going to be hard and work hard. But instead of asking me to drop, to set that expectation, I think that was extremely powerful.
Yeah. Also, I would be curious. You mentioned that professor became your mentor. So how important? Mentorship is very important, right? In the technology. Yeah. Have you so what is the role of mentors in your career? Do you mentor? Do you have the people that you mentor that you help succeed in their careers? So maybe you could share that as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Mentorship is extremely powerful. And I think the key is having someone who believed in you, your potential, even like you said, very well, that you didn't have that background to start with. So I think just pay it forward becomes such a powerful thing. It gives me just incredible joy and makes me feel extremely rewarded to do that work. So when I was at Oracle, I was hired as the director of enterprise architecture. And is a certification called the Oracle Enterprise Architect Certification. And it was a very gruesome process, 3 steps. And many times, people get rejected in every single step. And it usually, takes a whole year, if not longer. So I was the first female enterprise architect to get certified with that very prestigious certification and recognition. But being in a room filled with male colleagues who are great, very supportive, it kind of inspired me to help some other female engineers, solution engineers, to achieve that certification. So I mentored 2 of them during that time frame, and it was just extremely powerful to see them succeed and get recognized and obtain this certification and recognition. Both of them are doing extremely well right now, and other cloud-based and tech field, Oracle and Google and Amazon. So I think that's something that just becomes part of what I do, is to mentor. Here at Meta, there are various channels I can provide mentorship for engineers, for managers, and I take on those opportunities whenever there's a chance to do that.
Yeah, that's a great actually story that you have shared about mentoring others, right, and paying forward and contributing to others' success in their career. That is also very rewarding for you as a mentor, right? That knowing that you have made an impact on someone's life. So that is very interesting and invaluable. Helen, also I would be interested to hear about the building teams, right? You had this long and successful career in technology, and you probably had to hire a lot of people for different positions. So maybe you could share with us some key elements, right, of building high-performing teams, what that would be from your perspective.
That's actually a great question. I think that's one of the key areas, being a leader, that needed to learn in terms of how to scale. I think initially some of us are stronger in one aspect or the other, especially for those of us who are very strong technically, able to solve problems on our own. Letting go is probably the hardest part of building a successful team. So I think that the key areas that I learned through this journey of pivoting from project management and task management into leadership type of role, building high performing team, is that one is you need to be people centric. And I think initially our high performing type of projects and accomplishment arises from focusing on the project, the outcome itself. But building high performing team, I think the number one pivot is you need to focus on people. Focusing on know their strength and know their areas of gaps, and also understand their passion. What's important to them, what makes them tick, what is something that would inspire them to come to work and feel excited and solving those problems, and be able to connect those areas of problems to their interest. So that's, I think, number one, is focus on the people. And once you have those elements, then you need to figure out a way how to empower them. Set a clear vision for the team, for the area, but allow them to have the flexibility and the freedom to innovate and to achieve those outcomes on their own, versus be prescriptive in terms of how they do it. Give them the freedom on how to do that. So that type of empowerment is very important. Give them the freedom, but allow them to make mistakes and learn on their own. And that's how they actually can grow and scale on their own. That's very important. And then the third element I think is also important, is focusing on their growth. One thing that I mentioned earlier about Dr. Ahmed is what he did was, he's very encouraging. He believes in me. He believed in me, and but at the same time, he set very clear expectations that this is going to be hard, and you need to work hard, and this is where the bar is. So have a clear set of expectations and goals, and distill in detail what the impact could be for that individual, and leveraging the strength and continue to recognize those strengths, but also calling out the gaps and how to find ways to help them address those gaps. I think growing people, and that's how a leader can scale. So the way I look at it is that I think each of us have think about strength and areas of gaps, thinking about those are the two legs for a manager, especially like a mid-level manager to aspire to become a leader, a true leader, or building high-performing teams. I think it's very important to realize that what get us here is not going to take us there. So we're only going to be as fast as our weaker leg will allow us to go. So we need to intentionally improve the areas that, as a leader, that we might or might not be very strong with, especially in some areas like communication, people growth, and sometimes, just let go of the steering wheel, let people to do their job, but at the same time, provide support for them to be successful.
That's a very powerful thing, I believe, right? In growing people and also providing them the space for innovation, right? The freedom to innovate, believing them. And so, yeah, so I really love the point that you have made. But also, working for large organizations like Meta or JP Morgan Chase, other great companies that you used to work at, and allowing freedom to innovate, how difficult it is, right? Because you probably have some set strategy where you're moving to, and allowing people to freely innovate and come up with their own ideas might be a bit of a challenge. So how do you also deal with that?
That's such a great question. There is not a set formula how to make it work, right? It's a very intricate balance between some of the top-down approach versus the bottoms-up. The balance is the key. So on one hand, I think there needs to be a clear vision for that space that takes the level of understanding, the industry knowledge, as well as product intuition that you need to be able to distill into a clear vision for the team. But at the same time, I think also as leaders, we need to realize and recognize that we might or might not have all the context and the detail to be prescriptive in terms of not only how to solve the problem, but also what to solve and at what point in time. So the higher up you go in terms of the scale and the size of the organization, I think the more important it is for us to realize that we don't have all the context. We don't. So the question comes down to how to balance the two and how to provide some processes and toolings to help the teams to be able to, one, prioritize, ruthless prioritization, and having a way to measure those choices and be able to pivot as needed. So the way I look at it at Meta, it's such a large company, right? It's so bottoms up. Engineers and individuals have the ultimate freedom to choose not only how to solve the problem, but also when to solve what problem. So all the projects at planning time are suggested or proposed by the engineers themselves, not the managers. But our jobs are to kind of help guide them in terms of realizing the impact and break things down and ask very important and powerful questions to get them think the next level down and be very clear, establish that level of clarity. And also start to look at overall landscape, because when you have such a bottoms-up culture, there will be overlaps and there will be duplications, there will be gaps. So our jobs is look across and make some, funding decisions in terms of where to invest from, the large scale of those type of decisions. But at the same time, really try to find ways to support those innovative ideas. Instead of saying no to people, we're trying to find ways to support those ideas, but also get them to realize, if you choose A versus B, what are the trade-offs? Ask those questions. To me, I think it's startup at scale, but need to do it in a very thoughtful way.
Got it. Okay, that's very interesting. And it also speaks a lot about the company culture, right? Where you actually allowing this freedom and allowing people to take the responsibility for the work they are doing. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. What are other challenges that you might single out, you can point out for a large organization keeping track of being innovative on the market, if you could compare your previous experiences to your current one?
I think the challenges are definitely going to be the passion and balancing out the individual passion versus some of the the knowledges and experience as leaders we bring to the table. So ask questions versus making demands or commands. I think that to me is the key. And caring about people's growth and their passion. If to a point that what they're doing, what they're passionate about is no longer aligned with the overall priority, then we need to be really compassionate and helping the engineers and then teams find the right place that they can apply their passion, their interest, and their experience to. So I think that the challenge area also is wanting to do too much. And I've constantly seeing many projects that are not fully funded. One of the key guidance from our CTO at Meta, Boz, the new CTO, is that if a project is half funded, it's not funded. And we need to be able to say no to some of those projects in a meaningful and thoughtful way. Sometimes it could be painful, but we got to be very cognizant of the choices we make and then the trade-off of those choices. So I think it's always going to be a balance between the two on what are the fundamental directions we want to go. For example, we're pivoting to metaverse, but there are also a lot of other important business areas that we need to focus on. So how do we balance those large initiatives and how we understand the pivot, what's needed, but also not dropping some of the very important initiatives at other part of the business.
I got it. You mentioned also about something that recognizing someone's passion, right, is very important to innovation and building the right company culture. So maybe you could provide an example. So I would be curious from my perspective, right, what is happening. So if you recognize there is a person in your team who is not that passionate about what you are currently building, what actually happens? Are you practically, if you could share that information?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So at Meta, for example, when we first started, when we hire for engineers, managers, and different roles, we don't hire you into one org or one team. Very, very rarely we do that. We hire you because of your talent, your background, and your potential. And once we start, actually the first 6 weeks is called the boot camp. So for 6 weeks, you spend time to learn about the company culture. You spend time to learn about all the tools and systems that we use internally. And at the same time, you go through some sort of, what we call a team selection. So there are reach outs from the managers to what we call boot campers, and the boot campers can reach out to teams that they're interested in. And then there's this match process for you to decide which team you want to work on based on the projects they're working on, looking into the code base and just sitting with the people that you'll be working with and figure out if the manager that will be supporting you is someone that you can work with. So after that, then you get to select a team and work with a team. After a year, you can move to any other teams if you want. After a year on that team, we have complete engineering mobility and allow people to actually encourage people to do that. Mark once said, if for 2 years you didn't do a hack a month, meaning that you can spend a month to sit with another team. Figure out what you're doing, have a concrete set of projects and tasks to work on. And he said, if in 2 years you didn't do a hackathon with another team, that means you're stable. So it's a culture that really encourage people to do that. And then another thing that I really appreciate within this company is the level of transparency. Every team have their own group space, and every team provide lots of documentations and wikis, and you can read through, and it's all very transparent. So it's really a matter of time. You're able to selectively figure out which area you want to learn more. But there are plenty of opportunities that encourage people to wake up on a daily basis excited about the problem they want to solve.
But that is amazing, right? So it's not that you lost the passion and they will let you go because you are not the best fit for this specific project, but that you have this plenty of opportunities to actually work on something that you really love and you really believe in. That is so cool. Yeah, great. And I know that you, Helen, yourself, you had this, or you probably still have this passion for big data for many years, and you also authored 3 books on big data. So tell us more about maybe your books and about your passion, and also what are the big data technologies right now that you have on your radar in your work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I was always gravitated towards data. It's just felt natural to me how the data should be stored and retrieved, and the relationship between the data, what is the best mechanism and storage, to be most efficient for what type of use cases. So and naturally, when I was at Oracle, I started to get more into the information architecture and data architecture. So when big data came to our attention at the time, and Oracle was very strong with the relational database, and when Hadoop became one of the key areas to focus on with big data, with user-generated content that we started to actually tap into to generate insights for decision making, for business automation. Naturally, Oracle started to introduce a new set of products, one of which is called Oracle Big Data Appliance that uses Hadoop, a partnership with Cloudera, and also the Oracle hardware, as well as other networking technologies. So when that came about, I started to download the VM and played with it, and I was just fascinated with that. And then during that time frame, in the user group within Oracle internally, someone just suggested and say, we are going to write a book called Oracle Big Data Handbook. Anybody interested? And I raised my hand right away. I was like, coming in. But as soon as I got accepted to become a co-author for that book, I was sick to my stomach because I hated writing. I didn't like writing. I knew it was going to be a struggle. But, it was just a try and error and try to figure out how to be, productive in writing and put thoughts onto paper. And overcome procrastination when it comes to writing, and I got better at it, and then started to work on a second book on Endeca information discovery, and Salesforce wrote also co-authored another book on the Salesforce Wave and analytics platform. So that's how I, started the journey on big data. And I think, there are many different technologies that people still leverage. There are different types of big data. There's the, batch oriented. There's also streaming real-time oriented data that are also very important. So there is the fast data, there is the big data. And then I think it's really important nowadays to recognize good data. It's not so much about how big and the volume. We know that the volume of data is there, and we have various technologies to handle. It's more about the distributed processing that's important to process big data, be it streaming and be it batch based. Hive, for example, Spark, in a lot of the similar technologies that have been in place for a long time are still very useful for that. But I think a new set of techniques and technologies that are really important for us to truly leverage the value of big data is how we actually understand the data. Data understanding in terms of its quality, in terms of its distribution, and what that data distribution and landscape can have in terms of the impact on the model you build in machine learning and AI, that becomes even more important than the data processing itself.
So also, I see that another area of your interest is artificial intelligence. So maybe you could speak about what actually inspired you in learning and actually researching.
Absolutely. So that also stemmed from the big data space. So after the big data space, we established some new teams within Oracle, and I started to lead the central area of the big data go-to-market and solution engineering team. So worked with some of the most innovative, sort of cutting edge and bleeding edge customers of Oracle, some in the packaged goods space, and work with them on those use cases, because in order to leverage big data, it's the use cases, it's how you apply those use cases. And that's where I started to really get into AI, machine learning, start with Oracle Advanced Analytics, different statistical models, classification, clustering, some of the basic sort of statistical kind of shallow learning versus the deep learning approach to AI, to machine learning, to data mining. So really got to learn and got up to speed on those use cases to help customers to solve, like category management. How do you decide what brand to display and where? How do we predict some new initiatives when they launch a new brand campaign for a product, or a new one, or an existing product? How, through the initial set of transactions, can you predict the success of that campaign and product launch, so that manufacturing, distribution can utilize that information for better planning, right? So those are the use cases we started to look into as we work with our customers to go to market. So there I took the Coursera classes, the first AI class from Andrew Ning, and I remember was flying quite a bit for work, and downloaded all of those lectures, and on the flight and in between, that's all I did. Just learning the fundamentals, learning the basics, and learning the use cases, and then the techniques, and also work with the customers to apply in their real life examples, how to achieve business impact. So that's how I got into the AI space.
But also I would be curious, what is the most impactful application of artificial intelligence that is available today from your perspective?
Yeah, no, that's such a great question. So I think I was asked quite a few times lately, can you define AI for people? How do you define that? And I just start to think about a good way of describe AI that will make sense to day-to-day business professions, for example, and not so much on the computer science or the AI community. So to me, if you wanted to describe AI, I think we should start with software engineering, right? Because it's a very well-established discipline. People know what software does. It's a set of code that runs on a device, or anything, or computers, or mobile devices that will automate certain areas of business process or personal activities that help things more efficiently in the business setting. So think of it as kind of logic in the code, that if this and do that, that type of logic. And it's mostly based on rules and how we structure the code. Now, AI is another set of automation, but the difference of AI is that it not only apply rules, there's still some heuristic aspect to it. But more importantly, it is kind of learning from the data to generate those type of patterns, and then applying different types of learning, be it supervised or unsupervised or self-supervised learning through the data to generate what's in the middle, which is the model that applies weightings to different parameters that you use as input, and then generate a prediction, be it a classification, be it a probability. And that's what AI does, basically using the data to learn from the data, applying different learning frameworks, and then to generate that outcome, so that that model can be utilized to make predictions, to automate business processes, to automate personal decisions, to help us to perceive the world, to help us to understand the world, and also to help us to make predictions and decisions to act on that. So I think to think about AI at that concept level, then it can be used in any business, right? Because every business need to require some level of automation. And what AI does is it instead of mimic human behavior like what software typically does, it mimics human judgment. So I think there are going to be a lot of impactful applications of AI in any industry, in any day-to-day life that we have. And to me, what I'm most excited about of AI is how it creates human connection. It shortens the distance that we have and allows for more immersive experience. And it kind of change the way the space and time dimension can be looked at. And I think using that correctly, we'll have just an incredible set of experiences, new experiences in the future.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. But that point that you said there, recently I had an interview with Deloitte Institute Director Bina Amanath, and we were talking a lot about AI ethics. So you also mentioned that if you use the data and that correctly, right? So what is your perspective on ethical application of artificial intelligence, and what can be the challenges there?
That is such a great question. That's why when we talked earlier, I think good data is more important than big data or fast data, right? Speed and volume matters because that's how we acquire knowledge, right? So human acquire knowledge through learning, through understanding, through the summary of information, right? But if we learn from wrong sources, then our perception of the world will be wrong, and our decisions and predictions will be wrong as well. So I think very importantly, we need to understand the whole process and starting with the data itself. So transparency is key for us in the overall ML and AI journey. So one of the key areas that we're working on, one is around the data understanding. So we understand the data sources, where it comes from, the overall lineage from data to feature to training to model to inferencing, but also understand the granular level of data in terms of the distribution of your source data, and then the distribution of your features, as well as how the training data compares to the production data. Does it lose its fidelity? Does it lose its, the same level of distribution? Does it shift? And then also over time, does the data distribution shift? Are there bias in your data distribution in terms of different dimensions of country, region, gender, different aspects of your data? So if the data is not well distributed and then you train your model, then there's going to be bias in your model, right? So understanding your data and understanding the lineage is number one priority. And then the other part we're working very heavily on is on the privacy aspect of it. So what data is being used for training and predicting of the model? I think as consumers, we want to have control over whether or not the data I provide can be used for this type of purposes for model training. And one of the key things that we're working on is privacy-centric AI infrastructure, and that's a key product that we are working on. Some of my teams are focusing on is the private-centric, privacy-first feature engineering and ML infrastructure. That way, the hundreds and thousands of the teams and machine learning engineers and AI research scientists, they don't have to reinvent the wheel of identifying the purpose for certain data sources, what to use, what not to use. We build that into the infrastructure level so that they can do their job more efficiently, but also recognize, respect, and be compliant with those privacy requirements that we have as a company and for the general world and population.
Yeah, that is very important and key moment that you have pointed out. So Helen, thank you so much for the sharing your experience and your insights. It's been a truly great pleasure to sit and talk with you, and I believe that you yourself, you are very inspiring as a professional to many men and women out there in technology. So thank you so much for the time, and it's been a great pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you for this opportunity. I just love the questions you have, Dana. It's such a great conversation.
Yeah, love this. Absolutely. Thank you so much.